In the frozen north, General Chu Bing elevated warfare to a devilish art. He gambled with the enemy's own food, luring their main force into a trap not for slaughter, but for a harvest of prisoners. His masterstroke? A silent, moonlit raid that neutralized thousands, not with arrows or steel, but with a whisper of chemistry, a few drops of ether on a cloth. The cannibals woke from a deep sleep to find themselves in chains, having lost a war they didn't even know they were fighting. While Chu Bing was collecting soldiers, Chieftain Luo Chong was collecting the future. An expedition south yielded more than just coal. It brought a soft black rock, the key to molybdenum steel and an industrial revolution. It brought back potatoes, the key to ending famine. When faced with building a railway through impassable mountains, Luo Chong's plan was to simply blast a tunnel straight through. And when winter itself dared to impede his agricultural progress, he simply decided to build a new spring, encased in glass. In the Han tribe, there was an irrefutable truth when it came to mechanical R&D, a sacred decree passed down by the chieftain, Luo Chong himself. All things can be made to rotate. Want to replace back-breaking manual labor with a machine? Then find a way to make it spin. As long as it could turn in a circle, it didn't matter if it was pulled by an ox, powered by water or wind, or even driven by a chugging, steam-belching monster. A solution could always be found. Following this theory of rotation, a spark of genius ignited in Bai Chi's mind, and the prototype of a new printing press emerged. The contraption, to put it simply, was a large rotary drum. First, you would build a hand-cranked drum with a surface so smooth it could be used as a mirror. Then, you would affix an engraved, hollowed-out wax paper stencil. One end of the drum would be fitted with an automatic inking cartridge, while the other would connect to a mechanism for feeding and releasing the paper. When the time came, a single printing technician would just need to turn the crank with a steady heave-ho, like drawing water from a well. Blank paper would flow in like a river, and fully printed newspapers would flutter out with a soft rustle, like a hen laying eggs. How brilliant! The idea was grand, but reality was harsh. Bai Chi knew the ins and outs of printing like the back of his hand, but the moment you mentioned gears, levers, and other mechanical doodads, his eyes glazed over. He was completely lost. He had the concept, but not the craft. No matter how fantastical his blueprints were, he had no idea if they could actually be built. Besides, this wasn't a one-man job. You'd need a blacksmith, all clang and hammer, to forge the parts, and a carpenter, with the creak of his saw, to build the frame. The most precise components would likely require the master technicians from the Research Institute. After all, the entire Han tribe's most skilled artisans were holed up in the Institute like prized treasures. Trying to bypass them and go it alone? Not a chance. Bai Chi scratched his head in frustration until a glint appeared in his eye. He had it. Go to the chieftain. In the field of mechanical R&D, if Luo Chong claimed to be second, absolutely no one in the tribe would dare claim first. As long as the chieftain gave his nod, it was as good as receiving the highest decree. Need resources? You got resources. Need manpower? You got manpower. If resources were scarce, the chieftain could even dispatch troops to dig you a new mine. Therefore, if the chieftain said go, it was a definite go. A few days later, during a routine work report, Bai Chi clutched the blueprint filled with his fantastic ideas as if it were a precious treasure, submitting it along with his progress report. In Luo Chong's study, the air was so still the only sound was the soft crackle of the candle flame. Like a prisoner awaiting his sentence, Bai Chi stood ramrod straight across from the desk, his eyes a mixture of nervousness and anticipation, fixed on the chieftain, who was engrossed in the blueprint. And behind the desk, Luo Chong himself was frozen stiff. His gaze seemed to be sucked in by the lines on the blueprint, his pupils contracting sharply. My God! A thunderclap roared through his mind. A hand-cranked rotary mimeograph? Paired with wax paper stencil technology? Isn't this the miracle machine that was only cobbled together during the Republican era of his past life? Luo Chong's memory was instantly pulled back to the history museum of his alma mater, the National University of Defense Technology. The dusty old artifacts seemed to appear right before his eyes. He even remembered its golden partner, the Chinese typewriter. One would clack away, typing characters onto the wax paper, while the other word, printing like mad. In an era without computers, this powerhouse duo dominated the world of Chinese printing, reigning supreme well into the 1990s. The childhood nightmare of so many born in the 70s and 80s, exam papers, had been spat out one by one from these very rollers. The earliest Chinese newspapers were also printed and circulated far and wide thanks to this machine. Its efficiency was off the charts. Luo Chong even recalled a professor boasting that, back in the day, The Chinese typewriter was a prized possession that not just any old organization could afford. Ever since Bai Qi, the inventor, had his breakthrough, Xiao Dai was no longer emo about the lack of readership for her novels. Although her magnum opus still had very few readers, who would have thought it would indirectly spark a major technological revolution? Xiao Dai now looked at the printing house with a different glint in her eye, her mind consumed with how she could, in turn, apply this printing technology to her own textile dyeing. Of course, technological breakthroughs weren't so easy. For now, it remained just an idea in her head. Meanwhile, as the end of the year approached, the biting winter winds began to howl. Luo Chong's entire focus had shifted to the newly opened experimental fields in Luoyang Prefecture. 60,000 mu. It was a massive rectangular area, 12 kilometers long and 10 kilometers wide. Now, thanks to the diligent labor of a large number of civilians hired by Xiexine, it had been transformed into a vast canvas, wiped completely clean. As far as the eye could see, it was a boundless expanse. The shrubs and miscellaneous trees in the fields had been uprooted, chopped down, and hauled away. The wood was taken home for firewood or became beams for new houses. The uprooted bushes and mountains of wild grass were piled high, and with a single torch, whoosh, flames shot to the sky, burning everything to the ground. The resulting black ash would be the land's best fertilizer for the coming year. On the eastern side of the experimental fields, near Luoyang Prefecture, the ground had already been flattened by road rollers. The foundations for a grain-drying ground, a tractor garage, a repair shop, employee dormitories, and a temporary granary had all been dug. They were just waiting for the spring thaw to begin construction. As for the urgently needed dormitories and garage, they had been hastily assembled with rammed earth walls and simple wooden sheds. During the off-season, this place was home to the tractors and harvesters. During the busy season, it served as a temporary dormitory for the machine operators, technicians from the Ministry of Agriculture, and engineers from the repair shop. Time had quietly slipped into the middle of the 13th month. Only a dozen or so days remained before Luo Chong's deadline. Delivery of 20 tractors before the New Year festival. Everything was ready on the experimental farm. It was just waiting for the stars of the show, the tractors and their drivers, to make their grand entrance. Luo Chong was pushing hard, and over in Xingang Prefecture, Lin Fei was like a cat on a hot tin roof. The delivery date is breathing down our necks, and we've only assembled 10 tractors. We're only halfway there. Lin Fei griped, pulling at his hair in frustration. Those 10 precious, newly assembled machines had already been handed over to the driver training class for the students to use as practice vehicles. This had completely upended Lin Fei's original plan. He had intended to manufacture all the parts at once and then do a grand final assembly, delivering the whole batch in one go for a grand reveal. But the chieftain had shot down that idea with a single sentence, insisting he assemble a few first for the trainees. The logic was sound, and Lin Fei understood. It was pointless to have tractors with no one to drive them. But this threw the entire production rhythm into chaos. They had no choice but to work overtime day and night, rushing to meet the deadline. In the factory workshop, the smell of engine oil, sweat, and rust mingled in the air. A cacophony of clangs and clunks merged into a rousing symphony of industry. Lin Fei, holding a large sheet metal megaphone, rushed back and forth amidst the deafening noise, roaring with all his might. Brothers, put your backs into it. We must complete the chieftain's task before the New Year festival. This batch of tractors will determine whether our compatriots to the north have food to eat next spring. Think about it. The soldiers of the Divine Strategy Guard are on the front lines, fighting for their lives against those man-eating barbarians. And they're winning battle after battle. Can you bear to see our men lose because they're fighting on empty stomachs? This task has fallen on our shoulders. We may not be clashing swords with the enemy, but we absolutely cannot drag down our brothers on the front lines. Some of them are our own kin. He paused, then changed his tone, his voice now dripping with temptation. I know you're all tired, but for the next 10 odd days, I need you to grit your teeth and push through. As long as we complete the task of 20 tractors, every single one of you will get 2 months' salary as a year-end bonus. The new year is almost here. You can go home with that money in your pockets and have a prosperous new year. After that, I'll give you all a long holiday of half a month to rest properly. The workers' eyes lit up instantly. Their breathing grew heavier. Seeing that he had them hooked, Lin Fei played his final trump card. And more good news. The chieftain is very pleased with our progress. To reward everyone, he sent 200 fat pigs by train today, 2 freight cars of cabbage, and 10,000 caddies of taro vermicelli. The cafeteria is making pork and cabbage stew with vermicelli tonight. All you can eat. If we finish the task on time, on top of the year-end bonus, the chieftain will have extra New Year's gift packages for everyone. Now tell me, are we going to let the chieftain down? Roar. Let's do it. It's just 10 more tractors. We'll give it our all. The allure of money, combined with the temptation of pork and cabbage stew, instantly ignited everyone's passion. The workers' fatigue vanished, their eyes glowing with a feral green light, feeling an inexhaustible strength surging through their bodies. And so, the entire machinery plant entered hell mode. Working in 3 shifts, around the clock, the roar of machinery never ceased, day or night. Finally, on the eve of the New Year festival, the last screw was tightened. The 20th mass-produced tractor rolled slowly off the assembly line to thunderous cheers. Mission accomplished. Strictly speaking, they had even exceeded the quota. Including the initial prototype used for finalizing the design, they had produced, in total, exactly 21 tractors. At the New Year's banquet, after Luo Chong introduced the miraculous capabilities of the tractor, the eyes of Jing Yan, Yun Ji, and Yang Yin, the prefects of the major grain-producing regions, went wide. We must see it. Yes, a divine tool like this must be brought in. And just like that, it was settled. Even prefects from regions that didn't focus on grain, like Jin Dun from my prefecture, clamored to come along and witness it for themselves. In his words, even if we don't grow grain, we must keep pace with the chieftain. We can't afford to be left behind. As for Dali, the prefect of Xingang Prefecture, he was purely there to flex. After all, this tractor was the signature product of his Xingang Prefecture. He was going to show those country bumpkins, who said their industrial zone didn't contribute to agriculture. When they made a move, it was a game changer. After the banquet, the prefects first stayed at the official post house in Hanyang Prefecture. Later, at the warm invitation of Yunji, the prefect of the neighboring Ruyang Prefecture just across the river, the group went to Ruyang for a few days of leisure. During this time, led by Shi Xian, this group of dignitaries even took a ride out to the experimental fields on horseback for a sneak peek. At this point, although the trees, shrubs, and withered grass had been reduced to ash, the experimental field was still, ultimately, a vast, undeveloped wasteland. The prefects immediately began making mental calculations. A piece of land this enormous, if they used the old methods, would require more than 1,000 households working simultaneously to turn it all into fertile farmland. Anything less was pure fantasy. And the one thing the Han tribe lacked most was, precisely, people. Voiceover. On the self-cultivation of an ancient boss. If you want your employees to work themselves to death for you, you must use both the carrot and the stick. First, elevate the task to a sacred level with appeals to home and country. Then, smash them in the face with a double year-end bonus and pork stew. See, that's how you turn a 996 grind into a blessing of glorious purpose. Take notes, my friends. A few dozen people, farming 60,000 mu of land? The very notion was enough to shatter belief. If word of this got out, jaws would drop across the land. It meant that with a single roar from these iron beasts, the Han tribe's granaries would be piled as high as mountains. No matter the natural disaster or human calamity, no matter if the army was deployed on a massive campaign, no one would ever have to go hungry again. Famine would become a relic of the past. The prefects felt their hearts itching with anticipation, counting the days on their fingers. Finally, on the evening of the 7th day of the first month, they scrambled back to Hanyang City, ready to welcome the legendary steel behemoths. That same afternoon, at Luo Chong's command, the 60 eager students of the driving class set out for Xingang Prefecture. Their mission, to drive the 21 brand-new tractors, rice transplanters in tow, back in a grand procession. This was a steel dragon of unprecedented scale. A single prototype, the big brother of the fleet, led the way, followed by 20 brand-new mass-produced tractors. Towed behind each tractor was a long cargo trailer. 10 of the trailers carried disassembled rotary tillers and seeders. The other 11 were fully loaded with the rice transplanters that had been pre-ordered by various regions. Chuff, chuff, chuff. When this convoy, spewing grayish-black smoke and letting out a deep, powerful roar, rumbled like a great dragon into the Barbican of Fuma Pass, the entire county town erupted in a frenzy. The common folk, hearing the news, swarmed in from all directions, packing the streets in a human wall 3 layers deep and bringing everything to a standstill. These were the families who had ordered transplanters before the new year. They had come with the final payment to pick up their goods, never expecting to witness such a breathtaking spectacle. Heavens above, is that a train coming into the city? That's not right. We don't have any tracks here. Where did this train come from? It wasn't until the long convoy clanked to a halt on the main street that people could get closer and see the true faces of these steel monsters. This was no train. The engines and the cars were separate. In front of each trailer was an independent iron ox. "Well, I'll be. A locomotive that can run directly on the ground?" A man exclaimed, his eyes as wide as saucers. "Are you blind?" "It's right in front of you," replied a more worldly man next to him, immediately taking on the air of an expert. "Look, the wheels are different from the trains in Xinjiang. The iron wheels are wrapped in a layer of treaded black rubber. Looks just like a bicycle tire. I reckon it's filled with air too. Quick, look in the trailers. What is that thing?" "It's a huge iron roller with a circle of iron blades on it, like a giant water wheel." "Where are they taking it?" People pointed at the rotary tillers, which had been disassembled into parts, chattering amongst themselves, but no one could guess their purpose. "Who knows? It must be another new treasure our chieftain has devised. Can anything the chieftain builds be less than amazing?" "Hey," a recently married young man mused. "If this thing can pull such a heavy load, does that mean we won't need oxen and horses in the future?" A hush fell over the crowd at his words. That's right, a machine that never tired and possessed immense strength, if it could truly be popularized. "It's possible, but it certainly won't be soon," an elder analyzed, stroking his beard. "Don't forget, the train has been around for several years, but there's still only that one railway line. It shows this stuff is precious. You want it to be as common as dirt, completely replacing oxen and horses? We probably won't live to see that day." The crowd nodded in deep agreement. This thing was the tribe's ultimate weapon, something to be brought out for a show of force. The tractor convoy didn't linger in Fuma Pass. After unloading the cargo, they turned around, headed west, then southeast, and finally, under the watchful eyes of the masses, arrived in Hanyang City. The prefects were already waiting in formation in front of the government office, craning their necks, eager to catch a glimpse of this legendary divine tool. An hour later, on an open expanse of the experimental field, 21 tractors were lined up in a row, the fires in their boilers burning brightly, steam billowing from their smokestacks. The entire area echoed with the low thrum of the machines. As the technicians from the Ministry of Agriculture and the Research Institute gave the all-clear, Luo Chong glanced at the mechanical clock in his hand. When the hands pointed steadily to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he waved his hand decisively. "Begin." With that single command, the 21 steel behemoths simultaneously erupted in a deafening roar. Rumble. The visiting prefects and officials instantly scattered, each finding the best vantage point. Yu Fu, like a seasoned old farmer, rode his horse right alongside one of the tractors. Every so often, he would leap from his mount, rush into the freshly tilled field, and grab a handful of soft earth, crumbling it between his fingers to feel its texture and check the depth of the plowing. A moment later, an irrepressible, joyous smile bloomed on his stern face. Yunji and Yang Yan, on the other hand, rode comfortably with Luo Chong in his own vehicle, observing at a leisurely pace from the side. Dolly and Lin Fei, the two clever devils, had already found a couple of tractors, hopped aboard, and were acting as temporary stokers. It was freezing cold outside. What could be warmer than the cab with its roaring furnace? The most daring of them all had to be Jing Yin, the prefect of Dongxing Prefecture. To get a better view, the man transformed himself into a human hood ornament, clinging for dear life to the connecting frame at the back of a tractor, letting the cold wind whip his face raw. From his high perch, he looked down as the rotary tiller tore open and pulverized the hard earth. The sight was nothing short of staggering. No description, no matter how fantastic, could compare to witnessing it with his own eyes. This wasn't plowing. This was an unstoppable conquest of the land. A single pass from one machine left a stretch of soft, fertile field in its wake. How many oxen would this save? No amount of oxen could match the speed of this steel monster. Jian Dun of my prefecture didn't stick to one vehicle. He rode his horse back and forth through the formation of more than 20 tractors, his mind racing, pondering a question Lin Fei had raised earlier. The land was good, and the machines were good, but what about fertilizer? For such a vast field, simply letting the machines run wild wouldn't produce yields comparable to intensive farming. But there wasn't enough manpower, and they couldn't just magically conjure up more people on short notice. The only solution was fertilizer. But for 60,000 mu, where could they possibly get that much? A bold idea took shape in his mind. Just as they had a mechanized farming experiment, they could start a massive livestock farm. 60,000 mu of corn. How many stalks would that produce? And how many animals could those stalks feed? What should they raise? Pigs. Too picky. Cattle. Horses. Donkeys. The return on investment was too slow. After much thought, sheep seemed the most suitable. Merino sheep, goats, antelopes. The Ministry of Agriculture had already done the research. If raised in pens, they could lamb twice a year. Double the profit. The wool could be spun, the hides tanned, and the meat and milk consumed. They were practically mobile treasure chests. It's just that. Sheep. Well, they don't seem to produce that much manure. Jian Dun fell into deep thought, deciding he would report this fledgling sheep for fertilizer idea to the chieftain later. At 3 in the afternoon, all the tractors ceased operation. The chieftain's guard immediately entered the field and began to measure the tilled land, calculating the work efficiency of the past hour. The result came out to be almost exactly what Luo Chong had estimated. He finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the base camp, steam rose gently from the hot tea. Luo Chong and the group of still excited prefects sat in a circle, savoring the memory of the awe-inspiring scene. So, Luo Chong took a sip of tea and asked with a smile, "You've all seen it. Tell me what you think." "Chieftain, this tractor is truly a divine tool." Jing Yan was the first to speak, but his next words stunned everyone. "However, I don't think there's a need for large-scale promotion at this time." Voiceover. Witness the ancient version of a product launch. Boss Luo's move wasn't just a show of force, it was precision-targeted marketing. You see, he provided a full-service experience because seeing isn't just believing. Experiencing is everything. Watching from afar can't compare to seeing it up close. And seeing it up close can't compare to climbing aboard and feeling the power for yourself. Sure enough, the tech-savvy saw the method. The strategist envisioned the supporting industries, and only the most straightforward man was still wondering about nationwide free shipping. This, my friends, was a live-stream selling event for the Industrial Revolution. The moment the words left his lips, eyes in the room widened in disbelief. "Weren't you the one, Jing Yan, who was just clinging to the back of a tractor, your face raw from the biting wind?" Everyone had seen that fervent desire in your eyes, a look that said you wanted to dismantle the machine piece by piece. So why were you the first one to sing a different tune now? Oh, Luo Chong's interest was piqued, and he raised an eyebrow. "And why is that?" "Chieftain, I observed it closely just now and also chatted with the young driver," Jing Yan said, wiping his face, his expression now serious. "This tractor is a fine piece of equipment, but it has one critical weakness. It can only handle dry fields. Corn, wheat, millet, it can handle those just fine. But the lifeblood of our Han tribe is rice. And this machine cannot go into the water of the paddies." He spread his hands. "So, unless we can one day develop a version of the tractor for paddy fields, it's not of much use to prefectures like ours that primarily grow rice." Luo Chong nodded in approval. Jing Yan is right. For the time being, there are indeed no plans to promote the tractor on a large scale, he said, looking around at the assembled prefects. "Firstly, there are the limitations of the working environment, and secondly, our production capacity is stretched thin. Even if you place orders now, you can't expect to receive them in the first half of the year. The Research Institute has more important tasks at hand." At these words, the other prefects nodded one after another. That made sense. This iron ox was a beast, but it needed room to run wild. The fields in the northern prefectures had long been divided into small, fragmented plots among individual households, scattered here and there like patches on a quilt. And the Han tribe's tractor wasn't some small, nimble handheld model from a later era. It was a bona fide behemoth. To ensure enough power, its chugging steam engine heart couldn't be made too small. This kind of giant was in its element on the vast, sparsely populated farms of another world. But in the intensive farming environment of the Han tribe, it was somewhat constrained. Only a large, government-owned area like the experimental fields in Luoyang Prefecture, essentially a state farm, was a worthy stage for such a mighty machine. Anyone else? Any other thoughts? Luo Chong asked again when no one spoke. Jian Dun, the prefect of my prefecture, cleared his throat and blurted out everything he had been pondering. "Chieftain, I've noticed a problem." He was a little flustered with excitement. "It seems our experimental field has no plan for fertilizer. You see, we're going to plant 60,000 mu of corn here in one go. Think of how much stock that will produce. We happen to be short on fertilizer, so why not use these stocks as feed and start a large-scale livestock farm? This way, the stocks are utilized, the animal manure becomes fertilizer, and the meat produced can enrich the market. It solves 3 problems at once. It's just, I've been thinking about it, and corn stalks won't work for pigs, only for cattle and sheep. Sheep reproduce quickly and yield returns fast, but they don't produce much manure. It would be great if our tribe had a specialized breed of beef cattle, so we wouldn't have to interfere with the work of our draft animals. As Jian Dun spoke, his brow furrowed in a troubled knot. In the beginning, the sheep flock can be larger. Luo Chong's voice echoed in the warm room, as officials from the Ministry of Agriculture scribbled furiously. As for the specific number, you can calculate it based on the yield of 60,000 mu of corn stalks. For beef cattle, we don't need too many at first. We'll focus on improving the breed. 100 or 2 to start will be enough. Then, there are the pigs. Luo Chong emphasized his words. This integrated farm must have pigs, and the number cannot be less than 500. These 500 pigs are not for meat. They are for experiments. When the time comes, your Ministry of Agriculture will cooperate with the Ruyang Prefecture Medical College to focus on one thing: researching how to use sterilization techniques to make pigs grow faster, produce more meat, and improve the quality of that meat. Sterilized pigs? Sterilized pigs grow faster, and their meat tastes better. A thunderclap seemed to explode in everyone's mind. They looked at each other, their faces all screaming the same word. Absurd. This was something they had never heard of before. Chieftain, is this for real? An official from the Ministry of Agriculture stammered timidly. What is sterilization? Sterilization, literally, is to end their ability to reproduce. Luo Chong explained with an air of nonchalance. It's a small surgical procedure to remove the pig's reproductive organs so it no longer goes into heat. Think about it. When a pig is in heat, it gets restless, loses its appetite, and does little else. How can it possibly gain weight? But after sterilization, it's different. It no longer has those urges, so it becomes particularly lazy, doing nothing but eating and sleeping all day. Every morsel it eats goes to building fat. So how could it not produce more meat? Of course, the technology is not yet mature. Your Ministry of Agriculture will be responsible for providing the site and the experimental pigs. The medical college will handle the surgery, ensuring the pigs survive. Then, you will be responsible for recording the data, comparing the sterilized pigs with the unsterilized ones. Feed them the same feed. See who grows faster, weigh them every day, and create a file for each and every pig. Who's its father? Who's its mother? When was it weaned? When did it have the surgery? How many meals a day? What did it eat? How much weight did it gain? Record everything for me. By comparing a massive amount of data, we will find the optimal feeding plan and build up our technical reserves for establishing large-scale pig farms in the future. His speech left everyone dumbfounded. Creating a file for a pig? A file more detailed than a person's? Wasn't that a bit overly meticulous? But then they remembered these words were coming from Luo Chong, and they felt a sense of relief. The scientific world's Bible, the phrase boldly hypothesize, meticulously verify, had come from this very man. Have you all written it down? Why are you staring at me? Luo Chong pressed on, seeing their bewildered expressions. The breeding of beef cattle is the same. We must establish a bloodline file. It's not enough to just crossbreed a new variety. We must also ensure it can be stably inherited for several generations without any reversion. You must treat this as a research project, and in the future, it would be best if you could write a book on it. Then, Chieftain, what do the pigs eat? Another official asked cautiously. You're asking me? Luo Chong's eyes widened. Ask yourselves. I said, this is an experiment. What is an experiment? It's a classified comparison. Set up several pigsties. Feed this one corn, that one soybean meal, the one next to it sweet potato vines. Find out what they eat that makes them grow the fastest at the lowest cost. If I knew everything, what would I need you for? When the chieftain was displeased, the consequences were severe. Everyone fell silent, nodding frantically. As spring returned to the land, the horn of spring plowing once again sounded across the vast fields of the Han tribe. Unlike previous years, this year, in many of the northern paddy fields, a new agricultural tool appeared, a marvel comparable to the seed drills used on dry land, the rice transplanter. For the first time in thousands of years, the common folk could finally stand up straight and plant the tender green seedlings into the earth. And in the mechanized experimental field of Luoyang Prefecture, the scene was even more futuristic. 20 tractors, 60 drivers, working in 3 shifts. The men rested, but the machines never stopped. Day and night, the roar of the engines became the most majestic symphony on this land. Except for eating, using the toilet, and adding water and coal to the tractors, all their time was spent conquering the land beneath their wheels. The meritorious prototype had been honorably repurposed as a nanny vehicle, pulling a full load of coal and water, tirelessly shuttling back and forth through the fields, providing a continuous supply of energy for its 20 brothers. Voiceover. A brainstorming session sparked by a tractor, leaping from mechanized agriculture to genetic breeding and livestock surgery in an instant. Boss Luo's thought process jumps with the velocity of a bottle rocket. 1 second, he's discussing how to farm. The next, he's arranging sterilization surgery and lifelong files for pigs. All I can say is, the end of science is pig farming. No doubt about it. Though this work intensity was comparable to a hellish 996 schedule, the good news was that it wouldn't last long. 60,000 mu of corn, planted in just 4 days. Once this blitz was over, the drivers could finally take their well-deserved vacation, giving their rattled bones a much-needed rest. Over in Xinjiang Prefecture, the workers at the Research Institute and the factory had ended their holiday in the middle of the 14th month and returned to their clanging, clattering workstations. Luo Chong's task for them was simple and brutal. In the shortest possible time, finalize the design of the corn harvester and then begin mass production. However, this first-generation harvester had a flaw. It only snapped the corn cobs off the stalk, but didn't handle the shelling. Therefore, a separate, portable corn sheller also had to be developed. The Power Research Institute, in a burst of creativity, proposed a plan to use a plunger pump as the power source. Then, you could just connect a hydraulic hose from a tractor, and the sheller would start spinning with a steady chug. No. Luo Chong vetoed the idea immediately. The tractor was not something that could be widely adopted across the Han tribe anytime soon. But the corn sheller was different. It was a treasure that every county granary could use. If it was made to be hydraulically powered, how would the places without tractors use it? Use an air compressor, Luo Chong declared, making the final decision. Every region has well houses with steam engines. Just equip them with an air compressor, and the problem is solved, isn't it? Of course, shelling was a matter for later. Right now, the harvester was the top priority. Get the corn cobs into the warehouse first. They could be shelled anytime. It's not like they would spoil. Under Luo Chong's personal guidance and relentless pressure, the development of the harvester progressed at lightning speed. Between the resumption of work late in the 14th month of the first year and the middle of the first month of the second, the finished product rolled fresh off the line. Luo Chong personally went to inspect it, and after a few days of rigorous testing, he waved his hand. Finalize the design. Start with a trial production of 10 units. Why only 10? Because there was no rush. Sowing had to be done in a timely manner to catch the farming season, but harvesting could be done more slowly. Of the 60,000 mu in the experimental field, only a third had been planted this year. The rest of the land was left fallow. 10 harvesters, working at a leisurely pace, would be more than enough to finish the job in 8 or 9 days. There was no need to put so much pressure on the Research Institute. With that extra time, it would be better to get the excavators and road rollers developed. A whole host of projects in the south were waiting for them to break ground and forge new paths. Meanwhile, in the far north, Chu Bing led the main army back to the River Valley encampment. He had to quickly get the newly captured slaves onto the ships and send them back south. Luo Chong had already urged him several times. There was a labor shortage everywhere in the tribe. Although these people had no technical skills, they were excellent free labor for moving bricks and building walls. To prevent the captives from causing trouble on the ships, Chu Bing issued a harsh order. Everyone was to be handcuffed to the railings in the ship's hold. One hand would be cuffed, leaving the other free to grab food. Of course, they couldn't expect the food to be particularly good. Eat less, and you won't have the strength to rebel. You'll also defecate less, which made management easier. In addition, Chu Bing conscripted 1,000 militiamen and assigned them to the various ships to serve as escorts. As soon as this news spread, the entire population of the north went wild. What? Conscription to go south? To the Han tribe's homeland? Heavens! Count me in. I'm going to. The people shouted and scrambled to sign up. Even though they knew the round trip would take 3 or 4 months and the journey would be anything but easy, who wouldn't want to see with their own eyes the legendary, paradise-like homeland of the Han tribe? They had been part of the Han tribe for 3 or 4 years, but aside from the great sailing ships from the south and the divine soldiers brought by Chu Bing, their minds were still a blank slate as to what the Han tribe actually looked like. Chieftain Prefecture, the future hub of land and water transport. 3 docks, a train station, and a massive storage area. This was its grand blueprint. Here, the railway tracks would be laid directly onto floating docks, enabling the audacious feat of trains boarding ships. Giant cranes would be able to lift cargo directly from the trains into a ship's hold. A dedicated bulk cargo berth would allow ore-carrying ships to be loaded like a giant dustpan. A shore-based loader would only need to tip its contents, and with a great swoosh, tons of ore could be poured into the hold with ease. The docks and the train station would be completely integrated. The ticket hall would sell both train and boat tickets. The dispatch center would coordinate not only the train schedules, but also the arrival and departure of ships. This was a super hub that brought together all the accumulated technologies and management experience of the Han tribe. The workers unloaded the supplies onto the shore and set to work with great enthusiasm. Meanwhile, Yu Fu, with his core team, rode on horseback and in carts, driving flocks of sheep, heading east in a grand procession. The carts were loaded with corn, ironware, farm tools, pottery, cloth, needles and thread, and even brushes, ink, paper, and inkstones. Their journey was not just to complete the trade with the Baiwu tribe. It was also to spread warmth, or rather, to spread poison. First, give away a pile of good things for free to show them the advancement and wealth of the Han tribe, to pique their interest. Then, recruit them to work, and in their work and daily life, let them be assimilated step by Han civilization, until they were crying and begging to join. Yu Fu had mastered this set of soft power tactics. The Baiwu tribe was already craning their necks in anticipation. Last year, they had agreed with Yu Fu to trade their potato planting technology for the Han tribe's grain crops and animal husbandry techniques. But after Yu Fu left, there had been no sign of him for half a year. He had said he would come in the spring, but nearly a month of spring had passed, and there was still no sign of him. The clan chiefs were so anxious they sent out scouts every day for any news. On this day, when Yu Fu's grand procession appeared on the horizon, the entire Baiwu tribe erupted. Corn. When Yu Fu held out a golden cob, several clan chiefs gathered around, their eyes wide with curiosity. Yes, corn, Yu Fu said with a smile, gesturing. It's delicious. You can roast it, boil it, or grind it into flour for flatbreads and steamed buns. He mimicked the local accent, repeating the pronunciation of corn a few times, and demonstrated the various ways to eat it. I have come this time to fulfill our previous agreement, Yu Fu said seriously. To trade our corn for your potatoes. Tomorrow, we can learn each other's planting techniques. Upon hearing this, the clan chiefs' faces lit up with joy. They immediately brought over a few honest-looking farmers and, patting their chests, assured him the matter was as good as done. Having settled the matter of technological exchange, Yu Fu began his gift-giving session. Clan chiefs, our chieftain is very fond of your potatoes. He said that the Baiwu tribe are generous and good friends. To express our friendship, the chieftain has specially asked me to bring you some gifts. I heard that your esteemed tribe does not yet have animal husbandry techniques. The chieftain specially asked me to bring 3 breeds of sheep, 20 of each. I hope they can bring prosperity to the Baiwu people here. Men, bring the flocks over. Voiceover. How many steps does it take to PUA a primitive tribe? Step 1, flex your muscles, show your strength. Step 2, spread warmth, corrupt them with small favors. Step 3, cultural export, make them yearn for it. Yu Fu's combination of moves is a dimensional takedown. It probably won't be long before the Baiwu tribe is crying and singing, "We are the Han tribe, and the Han tribe is us." Yu Fu didn't care if they understood or not. He simply launched into his introduction. The people and chiefs of the Baiwu tribe had long been staring, wide-eyed, at the fluffy, bleeding creatures. Now, hearing they were a gift, the thrill was greater than if gold had fallen from the sky. These, all of these, are for us? A chief's voice trembled with excitement, his fingers shaking as he pointed at the flock. Of course, Yu Fu nodded with a smile, then began his lesson. These creatures are called sheep. In our Han tribe, they are the most popular form of livestock. You see this one with the yellow hide, short fur, sharp horns, and distinctive nose? That's a saiga antelope. The meat is edible, and the hide can be made into shoes. The very pair I'm wearing is made from it. What's more, this one breeds like wildfire. A lamb can start having its own young after just a year. They can have 2 litters a year, with 2 or 3 lambs each time. The ones we've brought are all in their prime. If you raise them well, their numbers could double in less than 6 months. Yu Fu spoke until his mouth was dry, spittle flying, stopping just short of reciting the sheep's entire family tree. But the chiefs across from him, though their faces were split in wide grins, had looks of utter confusion in their eyes. Damn it, Yu Fu's heart sank. He understood. These old chiefs had been so busy grinning like fools, they hadn't heard a single word. An idea struck him. He randomly pulled a husband, wife, and their child from the crowd of onlookers. He pointed to the man, then to a ram. He pointed to the woman, then to a ewe. Finally, he pointed to the child and gestured to indicate the number of lambs and the frequency of birth. It worked. The people of the Baiwu tribe let out a long, collective, "Oh." Their mouths agape, wide enough to fit a fist, their faces a perfect picture of astonishment. A god. You must be a messenger sent by the gods. An elderly chief suddenly grabbed Yu Fu's hand, tears streaming down his face. Only the gods could possess such miraculous creatures. Thank you so much. We must offer our most bountiful sacrifices. Yufu was completely baffled. Wait a minute. I'm trying to give a proper lesson on animal husbandry. How did we get sidetracked into this primitive superstition? Perhaps this particular charm offensive was too potent. The friendship between the Baiwu and Han tribes skyrocketed, their bond strengthening in an instant. Anyone who didn't know better would think they were long-lost brothers. Early the next morning, the members of the Han tribe began a full-scale cultural exchange. 10 men took the young and able-bodied of the Baiwu tribe out to graze the sheep, teaching them how to plan routes and identify which grasses were edible and which were poisonous. 30 people stayed behind in the settlement. The nimble-fingered taught the women how to cut cloth and sew clothes and shoes using wooden patterns. The strong-handed taught the men how to weave baskets and panniers. One of the cart drivers hung a small blackboard on the side of his cart and became a temporary teacher. A group of children of all ages sat around, giggling, as they learned to write Han characters and read pinyin. This is called corn sheep clothes. The driver patiently pointed to the various gifts they had brought, teaching them over and over. The children learned quickly, thoroughly enjoying themselves. Their mothers, learning to sew nearby, watched their children learning from the powerful Han tribe, their faces filled with happy smiles. As for cultural invasion, what's that? Can you eat it? Meanwhile, Yufu personally led a team, following several chiefs down to the fields. As he learned how they planted potatoes, he taught them how to plant corn. At the same time, he subtly introduced the Han tribe's system of weights and measures. He had someone unroll a linen measuring tape, gesturing as he explained, "Where we come from, a piece of land this size is called 1 mu. We have a household registration system. Each family is allotted a certain amount of land. The land belongs to the tribe, but you have the right to use it. The tribe pays to build irrigation systems to water the fields. In return, you turn in 20% of your harvest each year as a tax." The chiefs listened, mesmerized, as if a whole new world was opening before them. For the ordinary people of the Baiwu tribe, the idea was even simpler. Joining the Han tribe meant land to farm, food to eat, and a life of safety and security. Any surplus grain could be sold to the tribe for money, which could be used to buy those amazing things they saw yesterday, wondrous items that seemed to belong to the gods. In an instant, a seed of longing was planted in everyone's heart. Once the cornfield was marked out, Yufu brought out the era's agricultural marvel, the curved shaft plow. One Han man pulled a rope in the front, while another guided the plow from behind. The sharp iron plowshare sliced into the earth with a soft schlick, and as it moved forward, the soil rolled aside on both sides like parting waves. The effortless motion nearly made the Baiwu people's eyes pop out of their heads. My heavens, they finally understood why a single family in the Han tribe could farm so much land. Their tools were simply that incredible. Fu, what is this called? A chief asked, pointing at the plow and stammering. A curved shaft plow, Yufu explained. It's a tool for turning the soil. In the Han tribe, every household has one. Though, the ones we use are a bit different, he said, pointing at the single-bladed plow. The ones we use usually have 3 plowshares and have to be pulled by an ox. An ox is a livestock animal even stronger than a horse. Voiceover. From sheep herding techniques to basic education, from land reform to the unification of weights and measures, Yufu's trip wasn't about trade at all. He was clearly here with a complete civilization upgrade package for poverty alleviation. The Baiwu tribe's entire foundation was no match for this overwhelming combination of progress. By the time Yufu leaves, they'll probably want to change their family trees to Han surnames. As Yufu spoke, he slowly drew a 5-won copper coin from the folds of his robe. With a flick of his wrist, the small object caught the sun, its coppery glint instantly drawing every eye. On its face was a lifelike image of a man plowing a field with an ox, with the Han characters for 5-1 and the corresponding numeral carved below. On the reverse was the year of minting and a profile portrait of a man, heroic and striking in a way they had never before witnessed. The object was as exquisite as a work of art. What is this? Is that beast pulling the plow an ox? By the heavens, it looks huge. The Han tribe can even domesticate such a large animal and make it do farm work? Unbelievable. It's so beautiful. The image on it is almost alive. Who is this person on the other side? What is something so beautiful used for? The chiefs, as if they had discovered a new world, passed the small coin from hand to hand, their murmurs of wonder and praise unending. Seeing their simple awe, a mysterious smile played on Yufu's lips. This, he said, is called money. He cleared his throat. In our Han tribe, whether you want to buy food or livestock, build a house, purchase a carriage, or even pay wages, you need this. Simply put, this can be exchanged for anything. With that, he poured a large handful of coins from his pouch with a clatter. 1 won, 2 won, and 5 won brass coins, 1 jiao, 2 jiao, and 5 jiao silver-rimmed, copper core coins, and 1 yuan, 2 yuan, 5 yuan, and 10 yuan pure silver coins. 3 colors, 3 materials, 10 denominations, a dazzling array that nearly blinded the chiefs. Then, how can we get your money? One of the chiefs asked, swallowing hard, getting to the most crucial question. If we have money, will you sell things to us? Of course, Yu Fu replied with a sly smile. There are 2 ways. Either you sell things to us, but it has to be something we need. Or, you can come and work for us, and we'll pay you wages according to the same standards as our own people. The choice is yours. As soon as this choice was presented, the chiefs immediately huddled together, chattering away in their own language. Sell things? What can we sell? Sell what? A middle-aged chief scoffed, shattering the brief excitement. What can you sell? Grain? They're not short of it. Meat? They have their own livestock farms. Tools? They use iron. Would they want our stone implements? Open your eyes. Air. The group instantly deflated. It seemed that was indeed the case. They were lacking everything, from needles and thread to iron pots and farm tools. The other side had everything, and what they had was 1,000 times better. After thinking it over, it seemed the only path left was to sell their labor. But the Han tribe was so far away. They couldn't possibly send all the young and able-bodied of the tribe so far from home to work, could they? Alas, an old chief sighed, gesturing helplessly to Yu Fu. Fu, we truly desire your fine things, but we have no money and nothing to sell you. What can we do? Hearing this, Yu Fu first put on an expression of surprise and regret, playing his part to perfection, before speaking slowly. Your problem isn't that you have nothing to sell, but that you want to buy too much and have too little to sell. Even if you sold all your potatoes and sheared all the wool from the sheep you just received, you wouldn't be able to trade for more than a few items. His analysis plunged the chiefs into a state of near depression. Is there no other way? Well, Yu Fu pretended to stroke his chin, keeping them in suspense, before suddenly slapping his thigh. It's not entirely impossible. Instantly, the chief's eyes lit up. Tell us, what should we do? Do you remember why I came here last year? Yu Fu guided them skillfully. To find black stones. That's right, Yu Fu smiled. That material is called coal, and we've found it. Now, our chieftain has sent me with men to mine it. To mine coal, we need a place to live, right? So we have to build a camp first. But we're short-handed for building houses. He paused, letting the implication hang in the air before revealing his true purpose. If you are willing to help us build the houses, the Han tribe will pay you wages. Food and lodging are included. For every adult laborer, 1 silver yuan for a day's work. How about it? Building houses? 1 silver yuan a day? And you provide food? The chiefs' hearts pounded in their chests. Where are we building? Is it far? Not too far, about 60 or 70 kilometers. Half a day by horse, 2 days on foot, Yu Fu said nonchalantly. And there's plenty of work. We don't know how big the mine is yet, but just building the camp. Even if all the young and able-bodied of your tribe came, it would probably take a year or 2. He added, men and women are both welcome. As long as you can work, the wages are the same. For those who can't do heavy labor, you can get paid for helping with the cooking. The chiefs were clearly tempted, but they still had reservations. Can you let us discuss it? You know, not all of us can go. We have children and fields to tend to at home. Voiceover, from the shocking debut of a monetary system to the ultimate, benevolent scheme of working for cash. Yu Fu's operation is a textbook example of boiling a frog in warm water. He wasn't just recruiting labor. He was laying a sweet trap for the Baiwu tribe. Once they get used to using silver yuan to buy salt, cloth, and iron pots, they'll never be able to break free from the golden embrace of the Han tribe. By then, will there even be a choice between joining and being annexed? This was not a matter that could be settled in a day. Yu Fu was in no hurry. After all, teaching them how to plant corn, raise sheep, and make clothes would take several days anyway. During this time, the chiefs of the Baiwu tribe held a tribal assembly every day, repeatedly discussing with their people the matter of going to work for the Han tribe in exchange for money. Upon hearing they could earn the means to trade for those wondrous things used by the gods, the eyes of the Baiwu people gleamed with an almost feverish desire, their hearts pounding in their chests. The basic principle, going to work, was passed unanimously. What remained were the logistical details. How many people would go? How would they get there? What about the children at home? The chiefs swarmed around Yu Fu every day, peppering him with questions. Finally, The two sides hammered out an agreement. The first batch would be 150 people to test the waters, 100 strapping young men and 50 capable young women. The area was still a wasteland, after all, and there wouldn't be enough space to house more people just yet. Once this group of pioneers confirmed that the work was reliable, more would follow. Yu Fu was quite satisfied with this result. Trying to trick the entire Baiwu tribe into going at once was an impossible fantasy. As long as this first batch got a taste of the rewards, the rest would follow willingly. A few days later, encouraging green shoots had already emerged in the cornfield. Yu Fu led his vast procession and set off on the journey to the newly established Qian Prefecture. Qian Prefecture was located at a midway point between the coal mine and the Baiwu tribe's territory, deliberately positioned slightly closer to the Baiwu side. The intention was as clear as day. It was to facilitate their eventual assimilation. Before leaving, Yu Fu left behind the 10-man team that had originally discovered the Baiwu tribe to continue as technical advisors. The Baiwu tribe, in turn, selected 150 of their best and brightest, led by two young chiefs in their 20s, Gu Ji and Tian Hong. As soon as the group set out, Yu Fu released a carrier pigeon to report the good news to Luo Chong. Simultaneously, he sent a rider at full speed to notify Chengkong Prefecture to quickly send craftsmen, grain, and tools. 2 days later, the group arrived at their destination. "I've been here before," Gu Ji exclaimed, his voice filled with emotion as he looked at the familiar scenery. "I used to hunt here when I was young. There's a forest to the east for game and timber, a river to the north for drinking water and farming, and a stone mountain to the south for quarrying stone for tools. I even thought that once our tribe grew larger, we could move here. I never expected you to occupy it first. Oh, well then, shall we find another place?" Yu Fu probed, a hint of a joke in his tone. No. Gu Ji quickly waved his hands. "This place is great. We're all familiar with it. It's reassuring to work in a place we know. Besides, it would take more than 10 generations for our tribe to grow that large. I won't live to see that day." Hearing this, Yu Fu was relieved. He clapped Gu Ji on the shoulder amicably. "We're friends, aren't we? Living closer in the future will make it easier to visit and even intermarry. When your settlement gets too crowded, you can just move over and live with us. You're always welcome." Gu Ji and Tian Hong both chuckled, and the last knot of unease in their hearts dissolved. The group had just pitched their tents and begun surveying the terrain when the main force from Chengkong Prefecture arrived. 400 craftsmen, 600 railway workers, a team of 1,000 men escorting mountains of supplies. The sight left the people of the Baiwu tribe completely dumbfounded. Good heavens! 1,000 able-bodied men, and all of them skilled tradesmen and technicians. That was almost half the population of their entire tribe. And according to Yu Fu, this was just the vanguard. The thought that even more people would come to mine coal in the future made Gu Ji and Tian Hong gasp in astonishment. This Han tribe, just how many people did they have? "Fu, you've brought so many of your own people. Do you still need our help?" Tian Hong swallowed and asked in a low voice. "We do. We absolutely do." Yu Fu saw his intimidation and quickly spun a plausible tale. "Don't be fooled by the numbers. Most of them are here to build roads. The coal has to be transported out once it's mined. It's incredibly expensive to bring our people all the way out here. Every worker you provide is one less we have to transport from our homeland. So if your whole tribe comes, we'd welcome you all." Oh, so that's how it is." With the arrival of the craftsmen, the entire construction site instantly came to life. The 150 cheap laborers from the Baiwu tribe were also quickly put to work. Some went to cut down trees, others to dig soil by the river, simultaneously excavating an irrigation canal and transporting the earth back to build rammed earth houses. It was in the midst of this bustling labor that the people of the Baiwu tribe had their worldviews shattered and rebuilt time and again. For the first time, they saw a saw that could sing its way through timber. For the first time, they learned of the convenient and labor-saving wheelbarrow. For the first time, they understood that houses could be constructed by packing earth into large wooden frames, layer by layer. They were even shocked to discover that earth could be fired into stone in the form of bricks and tiles, that human waste had to be deposited in designated pits, and that this waste could be used as fertilizer. As more and more supplies arrived, piglets, chickens, ducks, rabbits, various vegetable seeds, Gu Ji and Tian Hong's eyes widened. Yu Fu struck while the iron was hot. "We have more work than we can handle. How could we have time to grow our own vegetables? Why don't you send some of your people to learn, go back and grow them yourselves, and we'll buy everything you produce?" This proposal hit them with the force of revelation. Tian Hong immediately mounted a horse-drawn carriage provided by Yu Fu and galloped back to the tribe to deliver this incredible news to the other chiefs. A day later, Tian Hong returned to his tribe. The settlement had already changed. Many of its members were now wearing cloth garments and had started tying their hair up in the Han style. Although there weren't enough cloth shoes to go around, the 10 young men from the Han tribe had already taught them how to weave straw sandals. With shoes on their feet, they walked with a new spring in their step. Voiceover, from hiring labor to providing technical aid, and then to outsourcing their supply chain. Yufu's series of moves flowed as smoothly as water. The Baiwu tribe was like a level 1 player fresh out of the starting zone, being power leveled through a high-end dungeon by a maxed-out veteran, able to do little more than stand back and say wow. It probably won't be long before they're actively petitioning to merge with the God-tier guild that is the Han tribe. In the cornfields, verdant seedlings shot up toward the sky. In the sheep pens, the birth of fluffy lambs was imminent. The entire Baiwu tribe was immersed in the joyous belief that a better tomorrow was just around the corner. It was at this thriving moment that Tian Hong, rattled until his backside was sore by the bouncing carriage, returned. Hong, why are you back? How are things over there? The 3 old chiefs who had stayed behind, their hair now white as snow, rushed forward to greet him. Good. Very good. Tian Hong's face was tanned dark by the wind, but his spirits were high. Our people are eating well and sleeping soundly over there. The Han tribe even gave everyone a linen vest and a straw hat. They all love them. He caught his breath, lowered his voice, and a mysterious glow lit up his face. Let me tell you, the Han tribe is truly investing everything in that place. A few days ago, another group of over 1,000 people arrived, bringing countless livestock and seeds. They raise a type of chicken with black feathers and a red tail that lays an egg every single day. They also have a type of duck with a green head that finds its own food in the river. And rabbits, as long as my forearm, pure white with red eyes. They can have a new litter every 2 months, with 7 or 8 kits each time. There's also a creature called a pig. It has a long snout and big ears, grunts as it walks, and is round all over. They say it eats anything and grows incredibly fast. Tian Hong spoke with such breathless excitement that the 3 old chiefs listened, dumbfounded, their mouths watering. Yufu said they're short-handed and don't have time to grow vegetables and raise livestock. He asked if we could send more people to help. He said that if we're willing, we can have these seeds and animals to plant and raise ourselves, and they'll even pay us for what we produce. Tian Hong looked at the 3 elders, his eyes gleaming with excitement. I was thinking, this is a tremendous opportunity. Even without payment, just being able to bring these treasures back would mean our Baiwu tribe is truly destined for prosperity. Do it. We must do it. Even if they don't pay us, as long as they give us the young livestock, we'll do it. The 3 old chiefs looked at each other and roared almost in unison. Did this even require discussion? Once they learned these skills, they would no longer have to risk their lives hunting. They could stay at home and have endless meat to eat and furs to wear. This was practically a gift from the heavens. Then, how many people should we send? The more, the better. Tian Hong slapped his thigh. I think even the older children in the tribe can go. They can't do heavy labor, but they can certainly grow vegetables, herd sheep, and feed the chickens and rabbits, right? And it won't interfere with them learning new skills. This is what they call starting them young. The old chiefs conferred. He was right. And so, the entire Baiwu tribe mobilized. Another 200 young men and women were gathered, along with several hundred older children, and they set off for the construction site in a great procession. Only a group of old men in their 30s were left behind in the tribe, becoming the stay-at-home children, or rather, the stay-at-home elders. When this massive contingent poured into the construction site of Qian Prefecture, it caused no chaos whatsoever. The most impressive thing about the Han tribe was its management. Forget 2,000 people, even with 20,000, any foreman could organize them into a clear and orderly workforce. The newly arrived men continued to fell trees and build houses. The women dug ditches and transported soil. The older children became the glorious logistics chiefs, herding sheep, feeding chickens, cutting grass for the rabbits, each one busier and happier than the last. The entire construction site ran like a precisely tuned machine, orderly and brimming with vitality. To Gu Ji and Tian Hong, this scene was nothing short of a miracle. While Qian Prefecture bustled with construction, to the north, the 30,000 slaves sent back by Chu Bing finally arrived at the docks of Weishan Prefecture. When the news reached Luo Chong, with a single stroke of his brush, the allocation plan was issued. 31,600 people, of whom 12,000 were able-bodied young men. 5,000 to Xingang Prefecture, to the mines. The remaining 7,000 plus were sent directly south. 5,000 were thrown to Yuji, tasked with building the imperial palace and the capital city. The remaining 2,000 plus were handed over to Yu Fu for the construction of Chengkong and Qian prefectures. Luo Chong gave a special instruction. These people are to be managed by the railway construction team. In the future, for railway construction, any work that involves digging tunnels, blasting, or crossing mountains where people are likely to die, let them do it. If they die, they die. There's no need for compensation. It is an efficient use of resources. Voiceover. On one hand, providing comprehensive technical assistance and cultural outreach to their friends, the Baiwu tribe, making them willingly integrate. On the other, ruthlessly exploiting enemy captives, letting them find their final spark of glory in the most dangerous jobs. Boss Luo plays this game of carrot and stick with masterful skill. What is civilization? These are its two faces. The Han tribe had captives, yes, piled up like small mountains. But if you were to call this a slave society, Luo Chong would be the first to vehemently deny the notion. That was a matter of principle. Sure, the Han tribe held a great number of captives, but they were not anyone's private property. They were all public assets, certified by the tribe. Their nature? You could call them a living, breathing form of production material.